Welcome to the Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Catherine Hemmons, and I am your service provider for today. We open our Sunday service as we've done the same way for over a decade, singing Spirit of Life, number 1, 2, 3 in our hymnal. I ask those that are present today to please come forward if they like, and we will sing. Thank you, and that was performed by our beloved Jeff Lovejoy. So I'll start with our announcements for the day. First of all, happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know that it's Jean Hunter's birthday on Valentine's Day, and she's sitting here in our audience, so thank you for coming. It's also my anniversary, and I want to thank Steve for 17 loving years. You have been my greatest support, and I am totally grateful for you. Oh, one other person is coming in. Don? Gee, great. Find a seat, pull it away, 6 feet away. Thank you so much. Okay, boy, big group of us here today. You're a big draw, Ruth, as we know. Our Sunday gathering, our Sunday happy hour gathering is every Sunday at 5 p.m. The Zoom link is on today's newsletter. We are always pleased to have new folks join us. So come along, come in, join in. We hope our guest at the pulpit today, Ruth Miller, will join us as well.
I'll do my best.
Okay, great. Our midweek e-blast newsletter is humming along smoothly under the guidance of Jim Negri. If you have a newsworthy article or information you'd like to share, please send it to Jim Negri that's JIMNEGRI @gmail.com. His weekly deadline is Monday at 5 p.m. It needs to be camera ready, so what does that mean? Which means JPEG format. I don't know how to do this, but I imagine that most of you do. So, have you noticed that the birthdays are now provided in our midweek e-blast? Check it out and maybe give a call or a card or an email. It keeps us all connected in this time. And it's a good addition and a good reminder to us all. And I think you just had a birthday, huh, Nan? Didn't you? Okay, happy birthday to you there. Okay.
And Brooke had one just before him.
Oh yeah, right. Last month though, right? Yeah.
No, they're both February. Both of ours were January.
Oh, they are, okay.
And Ruthie Baumrocker.
Oh, right, that's right, Ruth Baumrocker. The Aquarians and the Capricorns. We hope you're enjoying all the classes and events with Reverend Elizabeth. If you haven't already done so, check them all out on our e-blast, or check them out how to get to them on our e-blast and join in. Speaking of which, we are delighted to have her as our next Sunday speaker, and she will deliver their message. Reverend Elizabeth will deliver their message of beloved community with a sermon titled, Draw the Circle Wide. And that'll be next Sunday on the 21st. Are there any other announcements that anyone has?
Actually, mine's for tomorrow, Saturday, so
Okay.
Did that a couple weeks ago.
So if there are no other announcements, the chalice lighting. We'll continue with the chalice lighting as Rhema lights our chalice flame, and you can light yours at home. Thank you, Rhema. The words are by Deanna Van de Veer, titled For Our Collective Liberation, and I like that title already. We light this chalice, symbol of our faith alive in this world, naming our vision of collective liberation and daring to remember each other into beloved community. Blessed be. And what a phrase that is, remembering each other into beloved community, because that's how we create it, in our mind, in our hearts, in remembering. Thank you. We continue on with joys and concerns. You're getting a lot of me today. That's my usual thing. So I have a couple of joys that and Brooke, thank you very much, will drop a shell for each joy and concern. I mentioned the birthdays already, so thank you, and Jean especially for just on this day. And let's see, oh wait, Sally. Sally tells me that she and Jennifer have started the process of getting numerology readings from Xana. And they are looking forward to a one-on-one session with Xana to help deepen their understanding. I have had a session with Xana, a couple of them, and I find them very informative and interesting, numerology. Rather than a payment to her, Xana is requesting a donation to FOOF or to SOS this month. As such, Sally and Jennifer have made their contribution to our renovation fund. Yay, which is happening. It's actually happening. I can see it around me, and it will continue happening for quite a while here. But we're really spiffing up this space so that we can actually open our doors. You'll see it. It'll be lovely. And that's a joy. And another joy here, I understand that Tuvia, thank you, has recorded some music with the help of Jay. Thank you, both of you, for doing that. So you may see and hear Tuvia in future Sunday service recordings. Really, thank you for making the effort, both of you. Thank you. I do have one concern here. Thank you again. Xana's younger brother, he had cancer, and he also had COVID. And while he did power through, actually, the COVID, his cancer finally took him, and he has passed. Now, it was expected, but it is still a loss. And our hearts go out to you, Xana. And yes, our hearts and minds go out to you. Anyone else? Anyone else that has a joy or a concern? Okay, nothing that I can see here. For all those out there, thank you, one more. Living in uncertainty and pain, we hold you close in our collective heart. For all those who are feeling content and joyful, sometimes in spite of appearances in the world, we thank you. For what is true for one is possibly true for all of us. Shine on, joyful ones. We need you now. Our next we'll go on to our musical interlude. I invite you to enjoy a wonderful song titled Let It Be a Dance. And I believe this is also by Jeff Lovejoy, correct?
No,
Okay, it is not.
it's a UUA video.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. This is the perfect prelude to our reflective reading from Brooke Schaefer, and then our Sunday message from Dr. Ruth Miller.
Responsive reading today is from 1 Corinthians 13, and it's entitled Love. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and knowledge, and if I have faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body to be burned, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends. Prophecies will come to an end. Tongues will cease, knowledge will come to an end. We know in part, we prophesy in part, but when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. Now we see in a mirror, in a riddle. Then we will see face to face. Now I know in part, then I will know fully. Now faith, hope, and love abide these three, and the greatest of these is love. Blessed be.
That was so well done. Thank you, Ruth. This is amazing, isn't it? Well done indeed. Oh, my. It's wonderful to be able to not have to cover this, cover the mouth while I'm speaking. Thank you. Hi. I know that most of you will be seeing this on Valentine's Day, but we're actually recording it on Lincoln's birthday. And having grown up in Illinois, you know, Lincoln's a big deal. A pretty big land of Lincoln, right? And I remember growing up, we were able to go visit a replicated version of the town of New Salem, Illinois, and see the store where Abraham Lincoln, you know, had the nickel. He went and he chased the person after her, went several miles to make sure she got her nickel that she had left on the counter. And at the time, that was like, wow, just for a nickel. But later I learned how much a nickel could buy in 1830 something, right? And so, yeah, that would be able to buy several loaves of bread, or, you know, several pounds of something else. So a nickel was a lot like maybe a $20 bill today, for what that's worth. Maybe even more. My goodness. So why did he do that? He did that out of a sense of integrity, but that sense of integrity was something that came from his realization that we are all interconnected and we all have to care for each other. And that is why we're told that story growing up in Illinois, and I'm not the only one here who did. Because that realization of the interconnectedness and the importance of our mutual interactions and mutual interdependence was what drove him through the hardest time this country's ever gone through. The interconnection. And ultimately, the beloved community that we call America. Now, I love words, and many of you know about those, my love for words. So we're going to play with these two words, beloved and community, right? And, you know, as someone who studied Latin in high school and at college, I understood that community was, you know, two Latin words put together, unitas meaning oneness, okay? And coming from the Latin word cum, meaning with. Except I think I was taught wrong. In French, if I want to say like or as something, I say comme si, as in comme si, comme ça, right? Like this, like that. C-O-M-M-E-S. We are coming together as community, as unity, when we are in community. We are as one. We are as a whole. We are operating as if there was only the one of us. Okay? Isn't that interesting? Not just coming with each other along the path, which is a little different from as one. And then this beloved stuff. Very few of us heard that word when we were growing up. Beloved. What did that mean?
I think the first time I really began to pay attention to it was when I first started listening to translations of Rumi's poems, in which Rumi referred to divinity as the beloved. Now, Rumi was a very interesting guy in himself. He was a classic Arab teacher, Muslim teacher, teacher of Islam during a difficult time in the history of humanity. And he was attempting to make a connection with Allah, which is simply the Arabic name for divinity, the Arabic word. And he was trying to feel that connection, and he wasn't accomplishing much. He was a scholar, he was doing it through the intellect, and many of us Unitarians understand about that. And we try to make our connection with the all that is through our understanding and our mind and our thinking. But it wasn't getting him where he needed to go. And as the story goes, one day he was doing his daily rounds in town, and this odd man came by. And the odd man's name was Shams, which is an unusual name in that part of the world at that time. And there was something about this man. He was so magnetic and so alive that Rumi just kind of fell into a state that we might call being in love with this man. But it wasn't the person, it was the beingness of the person, right? And he just couldn't get enough. And so they went off in the wilderness, and Shams began to teach Rumi how to feel that connection, how to feel the connection, not just think. So when we say beloved, and when Paul in 1 Corinthians is telling his folks to love one another, or that love is the greatest thing, we are talking about something that isn't really understandable. It isn't a mental thing. It's a feeling. It's a feeling of deep connection. Later on, when I read the autobiography of a yogi, Yogananda, which I reread periodically, how can you not? There's so much in it. Steve Jobs, that's all he read for the last 5 years of his life, I think. You know, when I was reading that, when he would encounter, as he was growing up, when he would encounter someone who had that deep connection with the divine, that someone would always refer to the divine as the beloved. And then he would think of the someone, Yogananda would, as the beloved. And that feeling state of, oh yes, this is where I belong, became his signal for, yes, this is someone I am ready to work with. Now, we all are in a community that we call Futh. And when we're in community, we tend to identify ourselves as that. We identify ourselves as Americans. Some people identify themselves as Oregonians, and we all identify ourselves as Futhers. And I am convinced it's not so much because of the messages, it's not so much because of the space, it's because we walked in that door and we went, oh yes, this is where I belong. This is a space in which I know I am beloved. And it's a little bit of everything, right? It's Sally's good humor, it's the excellent reading and speaking skills of everyone who participates, and it's the mistakes we make, and it's the person at the door who welcomed us in. And somehow, many people, many of us, are experiencing this even online. How can we do that? Because being beloved has nothing to do with the person, the stuff, the material. It is a feeling state. It's an energetic state. And we can experience that even online if we are willing to drop the barrier that says, oh, this is just a machine. oh, this is just an object? Or how can I feel that good stuff when I'm not getting those hugs? When we are in the presence of the beloved, that presence is energy. That presence is more than energy. It is a consciousness. It is a state of being. The 12th was Lincoln's birthday. The 14th is the anniversary of the martyrdom of the Bishop of Rome at 269 AD, BCE, CE, Common Era, named Valentinus. In Latin, there is no distinction between V and W. Valentinus. And Valentinus was an interesting guy because he was so committed to this idea of the beloved that he wanted to ensure that anybody who had the opportunity to live in that state was consecrated in the commitment to that. We call that consecration marriage. Now, in the Roman Empire, if you were going to be in the military, and virtually every man had to be in the military, for 20 years, okay? So somewhere between 16 and 18, he'd get enlisted at some level in the military. And then, until he was in his late 30s, he'd be in the military. It was against Roman law to be married during that time. For the obvious reason that if you're thinking about your wife and children at home, you're not thinking about what you're doing here and now. And one of the things that's going on in the world today is we've got people in the military overseas who are able to be every day with their family at home electronically. The upside of that is they're feeling beloved. Absolutely beloved. When my daughter was stationed in Afghanistan, her daughter got tucked in every night by her mom. Electronically. There was no difference. And if my daughter, who is in the hospital, working in a hospital, has to do an overnight, she is there with the kids at bedtime every night. And for them, there is no difference if mom's in the room, if mom's on the screen. It's not about the stuff, the objects, right? Well, in the Roman Empire, they didn't have those electronic screens. That sense of being beloved was very, very rare and was only in the communication and in the community of people. One of the things that made so many Romans become Christian was they got to feel that experience in the gatherings and in the sharing of communion. Isn't that interesting? Communion and community. And in communion, they were sharing bread and wine that had been blessed as the embodiment of the loving presence. And so even if someone couldn't be there in the meeting, someone could take some home to them and say, you are part of this. And those who identify themselves as part of the Catholic community still have that experience as often during the week as they are willing. Valentinus loved truly everyone. He loved him in the sense that the book that we read from 1 Corinthians, the letter to the Corinthian church, talked about it. And in Greek words, the kind of love that he's using or he's feeling or experiencing is called agape. Now, in English, we got one word, love. In Greek, they had 7 words. Actually, they had 6, and then the Latins add another one. So, agape is the kind of love that we feel toward everything. Oh, I love this. I love that. Oh, isn't that sunset fabulous? I love that. It's that wonderful sense of allowing lovingness to be. The kind of love that most of us have been taught to pay attention to, the Greeks called eros.
Eros is sexual love. It's beyond lust. It's where not just the sexual connection, but there is something deeper and richer than that. And among the Greeks, Eros is among the highest forms of love, if you can get to that state. Then there's a form of love that is probably the most common love in the pre-Romantic era, okay, up to about 1100 AD, and that is pragma. Pramya, actually, if you're in that world, pramya. And we say pragmatist. Pragma, has to do with the ongoingness of things and making it work. So in an arranged marriage, a form of love that develops, it may never turn into eros, but it may be this love that is us making this work, us getting along, finding the ways that we work together, finding a smooth and comfortable interaction, finding a way that we feel joined at the hip, if you will, without necessarily that romantic, which was very rare at that time, or that erotic form of love. Pramya is associated with arranged marriages, and you know, those of you who are familiar with Fiddler on the Roof, do you love me, right? And finally they, you know, for was it 29 years, I have made your bed, and I have cooked your food, and I have raised your children, and all of this. Of course I love you. That's pramya, or pragma. A pragmatist is someone who comes from that place of, I accept the reality of this, and this is an ongoing process that I have committed to and making happen. Valentinus was aware of all of these names, all of these forms of love. And he saw that some people really needed the binding commitment, the consecration of their relationship to be able to sustain it. And so he was inclined to marry people. Paul did not think marriage was a good thing. Paul says, let's all stay single and stay focused on divinity. Let's focus on agape. That's what he's talking about. It's interesting how many of us have warped his words. And what Valentinus was looking at was, how can we, bring the fullness of the sense of being beloved over the long term into our life. So he married soldiers. For this he was imprisoned. And because he did it over and over and over again every time he was released, finally he ended up getting martyred. Now there's two stories about how it is that we have turned his martyrdom into what we call Valentine's Day, or what my husband used to call National Hearts and Flowers Day. One of them is a story my grandmother told me when I started asking about such things. And her story is that while Valentinus was in prison, he was actually in an upper story situation, and there was a philodendron plant, and we don't have a philodendron in here, and I don't have one at home anymore, but it's the kind with the heart-shaped leaf, right? Yes? Mm-hmm. And he would every day put his name on the leaf and throw it out the window to let his people who were gathered below know he was okay. So if you got a little heart that said Valentine on it, Valentinus, then you knew that you were beloved by him, and you felt that connection of the beloved community with him. Then there is the story. There were several miracles attributed to him, which is why he became a saint. And one of those stories is that the household or the jail that he was in, and there wasn't much difference at the time in Rome, the daughter of the jailer was blind. And she began to bring her the meals to Valentina's in his room where he was locked, and he saw the situation, and apparently he was able to help her recover her sight. So he healed her of her blindness, and then he started tutoring her to read and write. And of course the words that she was reading were the words of the Christian teachings, so she became a Christian. And out of love for him and out of love for what he was teaching. Well, finally the day came on February 14th, 269, when the whole system decided, the combination of the empire and the courts and everyone, that Valentinus had lived his last days. So it was time for him to go and be, in Christian terms, martyred, executed. And he left a note. And he left a note for the little girl that had been caring for him, who was now a young woman who was able to read and write. And it said, "Your Valentinus." Okay? Vos Valentinus. And so, you're a Valentine, right? On a heart-shaped leaf. So those are the two stories that helped me as a young person understand why we do this. And at the time, the only Valentines I knew about were the kinds we did in school, right? You got these fun cards and you chose which one was going to be for which kid, and you made sure every kid in the classroom got it, and maybe a special one for the teacher, and maybe one or two other kids in the school, right? This is exactly the sort of thing that we're talking about when we're talking about beloved community. We're not talking about romantic Valentines, right? We're not talking about the romance of love. We're certainly not talking about eros. When we're 4 or 5 or 6, going, oh yes, I want to, make sure they got one, and they got one, and they got one, because everyone wants to get one. And we made our pretty little boxes to put our Valentines in, right? And we went home and we enjoyed them, and sometimes they were special ones and all of that. What a wonderful way to remember a man. And what a wonderful way to begin to experience the Philia, that is another name for love that the Greeks use, that is the love for one another in a group. Now this is different from Offertory, which is what you have for your family. Okay? Your family love is different from your community love. And when William Penn founded Pennsylvania, he understood that. He founded the city of Philia, Philadelphia. He wanted us to be able to be together in that kind of love that is mutually supportive, that is recognizing our interdependence and allows us to feel like, I'm home. I'm home. I am being accepted as who I am. What I think is being appreciated and heard. What I understand is growing and becoming more and more wisdomful, if you will. And I'm beginning to realize ways that I never understood before or felt before, that I matter. I matter. I have a place. I have a role to play. And it makes a difference. When we are in beloved community, there's a part of us that wakes up and comes alive and expands our sense of self and our awareness of what is possible. Futh has been that for many, many people. And I know it will continue to be so, whatever form we're in. Well, however big our space is, it's going to be wonderful to have this be a larger space when we come back together. And that's only the tip of the iceberg of the beloved community that Futh is. And I'd like us to remember that for all the ways that we identify ourselves in community, whether that's as foofers or as members of a housing group, association of homeownership or a community, whatever they are, or as a part of a city. I think that's why Sally went on to the city council. She wants that sense of beloved community for Florence. I think that we can potentially even get to where Abraham Lincoln did and feel the whole country as the beloved community, the whole continent, which is what indigenous people do. The land where I live, this island, this turtle island, if you will, is my beloved community, every being on it. This is where we can potentially move toward. But in the meantime, let's enjoy food. Thank you very much. Extra pieces here.
Thank you so very much. I always enjoy your incredibly unique talks and how they apply in this way that I'm not even sure where they're going till they get there. And I totally love them. Thank you so much. And thank you, Brooke, for the very classic and relevant reading today. Now we go on to our offertory. Our offering today comes in the two usual parts. First is our request for your contributions to this fellowship as we continue our lives together, virtually for now, and later in person. Your financial report means so very much to us and tells us you care about our future. And you care enough to keep us going and help us to reopen these doors. And we open these doors for those who want to experience what you already experience, community. We are a congregation of wonderful people who care about each other and wish to extend that caring to those we have yet to meet. And your contributions will help us along the way. Part 2 of our offering goes to our community partner SOS this month, Sayusla Outreach Services, whose mission is to provide compassionate, respectful, and confidential support to people. And it is needed now, maybe like never before. And it is stepping up and doing it. Anytime you like, you can submit your offering to FOOF and make a donation to SOS. You can mail a check to P.O. Box 2502 in Florence, 97439, or click on the donate button on our website. You can designate how much goes to FOOF and how much goes to SOS, and we will take care of it. As we move forward to our offertory here at FOOF and in your own home, repeat after me. Divine love through me.
Divine love through me.
Blesses and multiplies all that I am.
Blesses and multiplies all that I am.
All that I give.
All that I give.
And all that I receive.
And all that I receive.
I am prosperous now.
I am prosperous now.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Your contributions and donations are received in grateful appreciation. Very grateful. Now we'll go on to extinguish the flame. I invite you at home to extinguish the flame of your candle as Rhema does so here. Thank you, Raymond. These words come from Amy Zucker Morgenstern, yes, entitled We Are One. Never has it been truer than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us, in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hum, sparking through space one to another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines. Now let us close with the peace song, with two of you. And I invite everyone to come up and join us. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you at 5 o'clock on our Zoom happy hour. Thank you.
We are so looking forward to when we will be able to be standing here physically together, singing with peace, spirit, and spirituality, the peace song. Please join in.
Peace.